lots of pictures.
I'm thinking you might have done this before.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you've done this before. This is like, this is cool.
Oh yeah. He'll pull us up and say,
Okay, let's see if we got some good mics going here. Good. I'll let y'all talk there.
test 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. I don't really have someone to watch for messages, so I do apologize up front. And we'll wait just a couple more minutes to get some more folks on. And would you introduce this young lady here for me?
Sure. This is Cyronne Counts. She's our product manager and director of marketing for our heat transfer products for Neenah. And she's been with us now, well, let you talk.
A little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
Awesome. And you live in?
I live in Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay, gotcha. Did y'all have any cold weather there?
We had very cold weather.
Very cold weather.
Yes.
So this is warm. This is burning up. This is hot.
Yes.
This is
It's
nice.
springtime for us.
And of course, this gentleman over here is Charlie Myers from the Neenah Paper Company. And of course, I'm David Gross with Condi Systems. We are here live. And what is this show? What is this show? Where are we at today?
This is the NBM show in
NBM.
Phoenix. And so it's a group of decorators and sign professionals this is one of the new shows this year for NBM. They typically have experimental shows in different markets. And David, we had a great day yesterday. Lots of people were here, lots of decorators from the Southwest, and that was really exciting to see, even just 2 weeks after the big show in Long Beach, that there were that many people here.
So what we're going to do for a few minutes here is we're going to talk a little bit about, and hopefully the audio is good, and Charlie will just stand this up here and y'all can just make sure you're talking into it.
Sure.
But what we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about one of our important partners here and what they do. We often don't speak about Neenah enough, and we take a lot of their products for granted, but they are an incredible specialty paper manufacturer. And in our world, in our area, is one of those very small niches that we take for granted, but these folks make all sorts of unusual products, right?
Correct. And one of the things that we make a lot of different things. The patch on the back of Levi's jeans, that's the paper that we make. If you use painter's tape, either the blue or the green frog tape, we make the base paper for that. But we also have made heat transfer papers, both laser and inkjet, since the 90s. We have over 40 patents in that area. And as we've grown over the years, our expertise and competency has really continued to grow, especially in inkjet, but also laser. But we want to talk about our inkjet products today.
Right. So the first thing is a lot of folks out there may or may not be familiar with what we refer to as the Jet Pro Soft Stretch. My recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Jet Pro Soft Stretch is the #1 selling inkjet transfer paper in the world.
That's correct.
And so that paper is a high performance, mature product. It does an excellent job. Sometimes, we focus on, show is opening, by the way, here. We'll let them finish their announcement. So we sometimes we don't think about that paper, but it has so many excellent applications, and over the years they've tuned that to be just an excellent paper with incredible minimal hand. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about on the Jet Pro Soft Stretch is the hand and the washability and also ink compatibility.
Right. So I'll talk a little bit about ink compatibility, then Cyronne's going to talk a little bit about the washability in the hand and how some of your customers and folks on Facebook Live can get a better application out of that. So Jet Pro Soft Stretch, the coatings that
We'll
we
just
put
make
on
sure
it,
we're good. Keep talking.
is they're designed to be multiple applications of inks. So in other words, you can use dye-based inks, you can use pigment-based inks. Which one is better of the two? And we can also use sublimation inks, but let's talk about dye versus pigment. Both of them will work. We recommend the OEM cartridges, whether it's Epson, whether it's Canon or HP. There are, third-party Asian inks that can be used. Some people have success with them. A lot of times, though, if we have issues, we typically can go back to an ink issue. So use OEM inks because, again, at the end of the day, for what you're doing in such small amounts, the cost is not going to make a difference versus performance.
And what I would add, Charlie, is that whatever you're doing, test it. You personally wash it, you personally test it, you personally dry it, and verify that it's going to be a product, whether you're doing a shirt, you're doing some sort of specialty item, canvas or whatever. There's a lot of people that use these transfer papers for things other than wearables, but test it. And then whenever you make a change to your process, it could be a new printer, new inks, it could be a new shirt, new material, you want to wash it because there are materials that get put into these shirts like sizing.
Correct.
That will interfere with washability.
One of the things I'll say about washability before I let Cyronne talk about it is one of the things that I do at home, get a laundry marking pen, you can get them online or at any store, and have a few shirts that you've made or going to make for customers. And every time you're doing a load of personal wash it, put a mark on that so that you can say, I've been washing this shirt for this long and this is what I have. So it's just an easy thing to do. Just keep throwing it back into your clothes hamper and continue to wash it. Okay, back to the inks that we talked about, pigment versus dye. Dye inks are going to give you a brighter pop initially, but they're going to fade faster. Pigment inks are not going to be as bright initially, but they're going to last longer. David, I would say 80 to 90% of our customers, and probably yours the same, use pigment inks. So you can use dye. The washability is going to be about the same, except for that brightness factor of and the pop of the inks over time.
So is there any do's or don'ts when you sell a garment with the Jet Pro Soft Stretch as far as instructing their clients, washability-wise?
I'm going to let Cyronne talk about that a little bit.
So we highly recommend that when you wash your garments, you turn them inside out and you wash them in cold water. Now, when we test for washability, we wash them, we put them through the wringer. So we wash them on hot water, with hot water, and we just wash them like you normally would. You just throw it in there and we wash them. One of the great visuals that we will take to trade shows sometimes is we'll have a shirt that was just pressed, so 0 washes. We'll have a 5, a 10, a 15, a 20, even up to 25. And what we do is we'll have those shirts right next to each other. So people can look at the color, they can look at the softness, so they can see that the vibrancy of the color is still there. And even after 25 washes, the color change is hardly detectable with the naked eye, but you can feel that the ink has almost become part of the shirt, and that hand is just amazing, and that's one of the things that people really like.
So help me understand, are there any special do's or don'ts with that first washing?
One of the things is if you've got a lot of one color, especially deep colors, reds and blacks, those particular inks, if you have too much ink on there, and Dave goes back to your point about testing for sure, sometimes you may get some bleed on that. What we say to recommend we do on those parts, if you've got a lot of black or a lot of red, once you peel the Jet Pro Soft Stretch away, put it back in your heat press with either parchment paper or Teflon pad. Press it for about 15 seconds or so to help cure that ink a little bit further, and that should eliminate.
So that's a great tip. So let me make sure we understand it. So, and you can do it generally. There's no downside. So after you press it, and you peel it, want to put something on top, could be a piece of Teflon,
right,
and you want to repress it. Let's talk about, just for a second, pressing. Well, I want to go back. Let's talk about print settings. Is there any guidance with your print settings?
One thing that we always say is that the coating is micro-encapsulating the ink, and you don't need to put a lot of ink down because naturally the fibers are going to somewhat come through. So you're not going to get super bright in colors because you're printing on a fabric. You're printing on a three-dimensional surface that's got a weave. So don't go to super photo quality. You're just putting down a lot of ink that could potentially bleed. Again, find that sweet spot between, you don't really have to go to draft, but most folks go to just a common setting. And again,
like a photo setting,
and
pigment ink, and then maybe inkjet
correct
quality paper, photo quality, things like that.
But don't go all the way to the super high quality because you're just putting too much ink.
Right. And when you're let's say you're printing your transfers, is the ink dry enough as it comes out of the printer where they can stack, or should you be careful with the prints as they're coming out?
Yes, you can go ahead and stack them. In fact, that's another good way to test. If you're stacking them and you're starting to see smudging, you're probably putting too much ink down. Now again, you and I were talking earlier about humidity, and we're out here in the desert, and you and I, we've all noticed we're probably, from being from the south, it's a little dry out here for us when we wake up in the morning. Out here you're not going to have a problem with humidity, but back in Mobile or in Atlanta or Nashville, you know, especially summertime, always have a small humidity gauge wherever you are printing. A temperature and humidity gauge, get them online, they're $5 or $6. You want to keep the relative humidity of your print room between 45 and 55%. That's going to ensure that your printer and your paper are optimal. If it's too high, you know, get a dehumidifier in place, turn your air conditioning up, you know, get it in place. Where we see problems are when people are printing in a garage or in a basement or somewhere like that with higher humidity.
So, so I guess that means that once you open a pack, you ought to be storing the paper properly, maybe in a sealed Tupperware container, something that's going to prevent it from starting to absorb humidity.
Correct.
The storage conditions of your paper is very important.
Yeah.
Because if it's absorbing humidity, it's not going to dry.
Right. And
so if let's say you print a bunch of transfers, is there any rules with the longevity before you press them?
No. Again, it depends on storage. That's where I would get a Ziploc bag if you're doing 11 by 17. You can get them online. 8.5 by 11. You know, and make sure that you close that bag. I would keep them in an office environment or a home environment, in a drawer, away from heat. A lot of change in heat and humidity. There's no shelf life on this paper, David. We've got people that are, you know, will pull it out 3 or 4 years later. They've called us and says, this paper's really, you know, it's a couple years old. Do you think it'll work? I said, try it. And they'll come back and they'll go, wow, it works great.
So, for instance, clients could travel to events with pre-printed transfers and take them out of the bag and press them there at the show with their shirts. Is there some brands of shirts that you like better than others, either for washability or print quality or whatever comes to mind?
I think Gildan's one of the standards out there. Obviously, Fruit of the Loom has some great products that we recommend. I'll tell you what we test with, though, is what is the heaviest, coarsest weave out there, and that's the Hanes BPT. So we test with probably the paper that the shirt that most people may know, you know, as a consumer, but is probably the worst to transfer on because the weave is so coarse. But we know if our product works well on Hanes BPT, that whatever brand other folks have is good. You know, again, I think to your point, when you change any part of your setup, whether always test, because that's going to probably affect your outcome.
Let's talk for a second about pressing. Walk us through pressing a Jet Pro soft stretch transfer.
Okay, Cyronne, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So you print out your image. The great thing about all of our inkjet papers is it's one step, right? So you print your image, and that is the sheet of paper that you're going to use to press to your garment.
I tell you, we mirror it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you print your image out, mirrored. You press it on your shirt. I can't remember the actual temperature right now.
So I think the temperature is at 375 and about 30 seconds. And what kind of pressure would you suggest?
Medium pressure.
Okay, so is that like, that's two-handed pressure?
Right.
So it takes really two hands to close the press.
Absolutely, yeah. On some of your heat presses, you can actually adjust your pressure by number. And some it's just by feel. So if it's by feel, if it feels a little too tight, then that's probably too heavy. If it feels a little too loose, then it's probably too light. So
yeah, and all our Conde clients out there know that we would really want you to calibrate your press, say every 6 months, especially calibrate a new press. I use a digital metal candy thermometer because it gives you a nice average going across your plating. And then every once in a while, I would certainly recommend you sort of get a feel for, is your press closing evenly? Because if you're not getting even across the transfer, obviously when you peel, you're going to have some dropout.
What I say is you don't want granny pressure and you don't want gorilla pressure. So between the two G's. So you don't want it where you can close it with one hand, and you don't want it where you're literally having to put all your weight on the press.
In sublimation world, obviously we greatly prefer swing away heat presses, but I assume clamshells work just fine.
They do. We have both in the lab. We do use the night press in our R&D department, but you can use swing aways or a clamshell with this product.
Good deal. Tell us about your exciting relaunch of the JetPro Activewear.
So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So people are very familiar with our JetPro Soft Stretch and our 3G Jet Opaque. We primarily promote those as great for 100% cotton or even 50-50. So the JetPro Activewear is a great product for 100% poly, even your tri-blends, or maybe even down to 50-50. But if you have your stretchy fabrics, your JetPro Activewear paper is going to work really well and give you better washability the higher your polyester content.
Because that coating is designed to attach to those polyester fibers. And it does have a lighter hand. Now, of course, the question's probably coming up there, can I use it on the 100% cotton? The answer is absolutely, but you're not going to get as good a washability because it's not going to fall off the shirt after 1 or 5 washes.
The thinner emulsion?
Correct. Well, and that emulsion is designed for JetPro Soft Stretch to attach to cellulose fiber, which is cotton. JetPro Activewear is designed to attach to a synthetic or polyester fiber. So you're going to get washability, but you're just not going to get as good. So always try it. Again, you may like to feel better. Right now in Europe, we've got some customers that go, we like this better, and we're okay, and our customers are okay with a little bit less washability to have a lighter hand. For us, it's a customer choice.
So, with these two papers, looking big picture here, I know a lot of our clients are going to say, okay, great, works for white colors, but how do they fold into the light colors? Some of the light pastels, yellows, grays?
No problem. Again, I think it comes down to shirt color. Heather grays are obviously a very popular choice. If you get much below a pastel, if you get into the darker greens, reds, you're going to start to lose whatever ink color you're in. And that's when you're going to want to go to the 3G Jet Opaque for inkjet, where you have to go to a dark. So again, it depends on image. If you're doing just black letters, you're probably going to be able to get away with getting much darker, but there's going to be a point where it's especially on brown or black shirts, you wouldn't see it. So that's when you have to go to an opaque. But yet you can go well beyond the pastels into what I call the medium color range. Growing up in North Carolina, I would say Carolina blue or a Columbia blue, something like that. That's fine. A medium green, as we're beginning to think now about St. Patrick's Day, that type of thing. But if you go too dark on the green, you're not going to be able to see it with either one of these papers.
What about the excess emulsion? Should people trim, or with the lighter colors, is that emulsion going to be hidden?
You're going to see some of it. We recommend a light trim. I think I brought this up before. A good trick, actually, is to use pinking shears. And the reason being, the human eye sees a straight line or a contour cut better than it sees a line that's broken up. So again, online or your local fabric store, get a pair of pinking shears and go around that edge. The polymer is the excess emulsion polymer is designed to wash out after 1 or 2 washes.
So So somehow the paper is smart enough to know that if it has ink on it,
Correct.
to stay.
That's the micro encapsulation point. So
super cool. So as people know out there, we call that in the sublimation world, we call it decaling the edge. Well, obviously you can tear transfer paper, but you'll need to cut inkjet paper.
Right.
So I know a lot of folks are going to ask, well, what about sublimation? So if folks want to use sublimation ink with, say, the Jet Pro Soft Stretch, the active wear, what's the upside, what's the downside?
Well, the upside is, let's say that you only have a dye sublimation paper and you've got a customer that's going to want something that's 100% cotton or closer to it than a 50-50 or polyester that we would use on the sublimation print. You can use Jet Pro Soft Stretch. You may not get as much of a, depending on the heat, as that ink starts to sublimate a little bit, David, you may lose some of the color pop, and your washability won't be as good. But for 1 or 2 time use shirts, which a lot of these are, it will work.
So if I'm transferring to a cotton shirt or 50-50, it's white, and I use Jet Pro Soft Stretch with sublimation ink, you're saying it doesn't quite have the washability of, say, a pigment ink would
Correct.
be.
And it may not have quite the pop, because again, at 375, we're getting close to where that ink is going to start to sublimate, and so you might lose a little bit of that as you go.
So it's actually sublimating into the polymer layer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But you're going to lose, again, it's not, it works. We've got people that do it. Again, it comes back to testing. It's image related, it's color related, but it will work. We've always said it's designed for all three of those.
Do you see much of what I refer to as dye migration?
A little bit.
So dye migration is where over time in the dryer, the ink tends to spread out a little bit, blur a little bit. And so if you're interested in that, I know a lot of people do it. We don't talk much about it, but you can get a couple of sheets from us, and we can certainly, you can practice and see if you like it. But a lot of folks are going to have a normal inkjet printer, and the Jet Pro Soft Stretch. It just has an excellent hand. I mean, and you're saying that the Jet Pro Performance Wear even has a softer hand. Wow.
Right, it's even lighter. The beautiful thing about this paper, David, is no matter what you're doing, whether it's sublimation, you've got a laser printer, you've got always to have a Jet Pro Soft Stretch in the back with just a simple inkjet printer is a good way when you need something that somebody goes, I don't like the feel of what I'm doing here, I don't like the color. This is an easy, simple way to have a backup, and as well as another option in your kit for your customers.
So, folks that go to events, all that, if you're just doing white shirts or light colored, you've got a great solution for, using an inexpensive cotton shirt, inexpensive 50-50.
Right.
Any other products that I'm trying to think that we need to discuss?
3G is on the dark side, so I'm sure everybody's saying, well, what do you do when you go to dark? And the product we have for there is called 3G Jet Opaque, which again you print right reading, and then you peel the backing paper away. Now you have to contour cut, or you're just going to have a big white square with the logo on it. Which again, if you're doing photographs, that's fine. But 3G Jet Opaque is what you use for darks. The differences are obviously it's got a little bit more of a hand because you really got the opaque layer. But yet 3G Jet Opaque has the lightest hand of any opaque out there. And David, it's not only the best-selling light paper in the world, it's the best-selling inkjet paper, period. And we know this. We sell it in Asia by the container load. We sell it in South America.
Wow.
We sell it in Africa, Europe, and of course here in the U.S. You hear 3G, and back in the day, David, you and I would think about, well, that was a cellular standard, and we did it. It was really, and now it's really known within the graphics industry as what you need.
So for folks that didn't quite comprehend that, let me just say it again. It's a thin white patch material.
Correct.
You print on it, not mirrored image. Then you peel it away from the liner. You lay it on the shirt.
Correct.
Put something like Teflon on top, press it, and then that sets it into the shirt.
Correct, and it's done. And a question we get sometimes, David, is can you use that on a light shirt? Absolutely. But you're going to have more of a hand. But if you only wanted one paper for both light and dark, that's why it's probably the best-selling paper. When you get into emerging markets in Asia, they don't have the ability in smaller markets to have inventory of two different papers. It's not like here with Condi, where you guys have a warehouse in California and one in Mobile, that you can get paper anywhere real quickly. So they'll use 3G as their one go-to paper. So again, if you're going to a show or to a location, and if you don't mind doing a little trimming, that way you could do light and dark shirts with that product. So it micro-encapsulates. It's got tremendous washability because, again, that layer's a little bit heavier. But compared to we make another one called Jet Opaque 2, which is an older product. It's got a thicker hand on it. Now it's really good for photographs, but if I gave this to you or anybody out on the street with those two products and you filled them, you're going to take 3G every time.
Gotcha. So, finish up here. We are in the marker booth. We have coloring with Condi, where people are going to come up here and they're going to sit down and color with the sublimation markers from the great folks at Artesprix. Call them Artesprix markers, and been a tremendous hit, as many of you folks know. And so I know people are going to ask is, okay, are the markers compatible with these papers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is something that we saw that, again, because these are inks, these are sublimation inks, they'll work on this. So what a great way to do something fun and different, to get kids involved, or just coloring over the past 5 years has become a big adult thing again. And so this gives you the ability to make your own art and then transfer it. So
on the JetPro Soft Stretch Activewear, either one, you would need to obviously sort of write in mirror, but on the opaque papers, you just simply write.
Correct.
How cool is that? Now, from a safety point of view, let's just conclude with just a quick as far as are these products compliant with safety standards?
Yes. You really can't do the SIPSA standard anymore, but we can write letters as we have for you saying that our products are safe and they don't have any of the ingredients that are in there. Part of the thing with SIPSA is you have to have a 24-hour hotline, and for this type of product that just doesn't make sense. But we will gladly write a letter.
But like Prop 65, we're all compliant with that.
These are FSC certified papers.
Yeah, and so very, I mean, you folks are a very substantial company, play in so many different fields. You're probably one of the leading companies in understanding the safety of your product. Much more than anyone else.
Perfectly safe, all the way down to infant level. No issues there. 3 and above. I think when you get to infants, there's the standards are completely different, but no problems. And like you say, not only from a health side for humans, our products are made on the shores of Lake Superior, so we have to be extremely careful. We're on the edge of a national forest. We work with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, so we have to be really careful about the products that we use, the products that are in our mills. So these are very, very safe products.
So Condi, to my knowledge, carries all these products and many that we haven't talked about. So if you're interested in getting some samples, whatever, please touch base with your Condi rep. And I think if you're not using them, they can potentially open some new markets for you that are very exciting. And so I want to thank you all for being with us this morning. And we're all going to go back and go to work. We've had just a great day at the show, and I appreciate many of our clients coming to visit us. We've had great visits with them. It's always fun to meet somebody in person, and I had a great class yesterday. Really, really good. So I want to thank everybody for being with us this morning, and thank the great folks from Neenah. And I guess maybe we'll see you at another show, but we'll probably see you at the open house coming up. I think that, when is that? June 16th or something in that thing. So if you're not making your plans to come down and visit, please do. And I suspect that's going to be good beach weather, so come down. Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
David.
Take care.
All right.
Finish.